Deep within the vault of Yale University's Voynich Rare Book and Manuscript Library rests an artifact that defies human comprehension. It is a medieval book, bound in unassuming calfskin, measuring just 9 by 6 inches. Yet across its 240 surviving pages, it harbors a linguistic labyrinth so profound that the greatest minds of the modern era cannot navigate it. The text flows gracefully from left to right, organized into paragraphs with clear margins, but the characters belong to no known alphabet. It is a symphony of elegant looping glyphs that form words, sentences, and perhaps entire philosophies, all locked behind an impenetrable barrier of silence. We are looking at the Voynich Manuscript, the most mysterious text on earth. The baffling script is only the beginning of the enigma. Interspersed among the dense blocks of text are hundreds of intricate hand-drawn illustrations painted in vibrant greens, browns, yellows, and blues. We see sprawling botanical diagrams of plants that do not exist in the natural world, their root systems mutating into strange, geometric shapes. There are elaborate astrological charts plotting unknown constellations, and bizarre biological sections depicting miniature female figures bathing in interconnected pools of green liquid, propelled by complex organic plumbing. The imagery suggests an encyclopedic work of natural philosophy, alchemy, or medicine, yet the visual clues only deepen the profound disorientation. The modern saga of this undeciphered relic began in 1912. An antiquarian book dealer named Wilfrid Voynich was perusing a collection of rare manuscripts at the Villa Mondragone, a Jesuit college near Rome. Among the dusty tomes, he unearthed a plain, unlettered volume that immediately seized his attention. Tucked inside its pages was a faded letter dated 1666, written by the Bohemian physician Johannes Marcus Marci. The letter claimed the book had once belonged to the Holy Roman Emperor Rudolph II, who had purchased it for 600 gold ducats, believing it to be the work of the legendary 13th-century philosopher Roger Bacon. Wilfrid recognized the immense historical value of his find and spent the rest of his life attempting to unlock its secrets, distributing photographic copies to the world's leading scholars. Linguists, medievalists, and historians eagerly applied their expertise, assuming the text was a standard substitution cipher common to the era. They anticipated a swift resolution. Instead, they encountered a cryptographic wall. The elegant loops and flourishes of the script yielded no recognizable syntax, no familiar Latin roots, and no predictable grammatical structures. The initial optimism of the academic community rapidly dissolved into a century-long obsession. Tracing the artifact's provenance reveals a shadowy journey through the intellectual underground of early modern Europe. Before reaching the Jesuit college, the manuscript passed through the hands of prominent alchemists and scholars in 17th-century Prague, including Georg Barisch, an antique collector who dedicated his life to deciphering its contents without success. Barisch eventually bequeathed the puzzle to Marci, who in turn sent it to the renowned Jesuit scholar Athanasius Kircher in Rome, desperately hoping the master of Egyptian hieroglyphs could translate it. Kircher too failed. For over 2 centuries after Kircher's death, the book lay dormant, its silent pages gathering dust until it was brought back into the light. As the 20th century progressed, the investigation shifted from antiquarian study to the rigorous domain of modern cryptography. Following the Second World War, elite codebreakers who had successfully cracked the Enigma machine turned their formidable analytical skills toward the manuscript. William Friedman, the pioneering cryptologist who deciphered the Japanese Purple Code, formed a dedicated study group. They transcribed the strange glyphs into machine-readable formats, applying the most advanced statistical tools of the era. Friedman ultimately concluded that the text was not a simple cipher, but rather an artificial, constructed language, perhaps an early attempt at a universal philosophical tongue. The cryptographic battlefield remains divided into several fiercely debated camps. One prominent theory posits that the manuscript is a sophisticated cipher, concealing a natural language beneath layers of complex algorithmic encryption. Proponents of this view suggest the author may have used a transposition cipher, anagramming words or utilizing a polyalphabetic system to obscure the meaning. Another faction argues for a phonetically transcribed language, suggesting the author recorded an unwritten dialect or an obscure extinct language using an invented alphabet. Each hypothesis, however, eventually collides with the text's strange internal logic. Computational linguists have subjected the text to exhaustive statistical analysis, revealing patterns that fiercely contradict the idea of random gibberish. The manuscript adheres strictly to Zipf's law, a fundamental linguistic principle stating that the frequency of any word is inversely proportional to its rank in the frequency table. This mathematical signature is present in all natural human languages. The text also exhibits a highly structured word entropy, with specific prefixes, infixes, and suffixes combining in predictable ways. The data unequivocally suggests a structured system of communication, a genuine language hiding in plain sight. Yet the structure of Voynichese behaves like no other language on Earth. It lacks any recognizable punctuation. Words are frequently repeated 2, 3, or even 4 times in succession, a highly unusual feature for natural speech or written prose. Furthermore, the length of the words is strangely uniform, lacking the very short or very long words typical of languages like English or Latin. The characters themselves flow with a rhythmic, almost hypnotic consistency, leading some researchers to suggest the script was generated mechanically rather than organically. This mechanical rhythm fueled a controversial counter-theory that the manuscript is an elaborate, meticulously crafted hoax. In the early 2000s, computer scientist Gordon Rugg demonstrated that text with similar statistical properties could be generated using a Cardon grill, a 16th-century encryption tool consisting of a sheet of cardboard with strategically placed holes. By moving the grill over a table of word prefixes, roots, and suffixes, a forger could rapidly produce pages of convincing, yet entirely meaningless text. The hoax theory suggests the book was created to defraud wealthy collectors, capitalizing on the Renaissance fascination with the occult. However, the hoax hypothesis struggles to account for the sheer scale and internal consistency of the work. Generating over 38,000 distinct words with complex, interconnected grammatical rules using a manual grid would require a staggering amount of time, effort, and flawless execution. Many linguists maintain that the text's subtle complexities, such as the distinct dialects observed between different sections of the book, point toward an organic, albeit highly unusual, linguistic evolution rather than a mechanical fabrication. The debate between genuine language and sophisticated forgery remains one of the investigation's most contentious battlegrounds. To break the deadlock, those investigating the manuscript realized they needed to look beyond the impenetrable text and interrogate the physical object itself. The turn of the 21st century brought a new arsenal of non-destructive analytical techniques to bear on the parchment, ink, and pigments. If the origins of the text could not be deciphered, perhaps the chemistry of the materials could reveal when and where the enigmatic author actually lived. In 2009, researchers from the University of Arizona extracted microscopic samples from the margins of 4 different pages. Utilizing accelerator mass spectrometry, they performed precise radiocarbon dating on the animal skin vellum. The results were definitive and startling. The parchment was created between 1404 and 1438. This crucial data point definitively ruled out any modern forgery theory. It also meant the manuscript was created a full century earlier than previous historians had believed, placing its origin firmly in the early 15th century. Subsequent material analysis deepened the historical context. Multispectral imaging and Raman spectroscopy confirmed that the inks and pigments were entirely consistent with the European Renaissance palette. The author used iron gall ink for the text, while the vibrant illustrations were brought to life with azurite, malachite, red lead, and organic dyes. There were no anachronistic materials, no modern synthetic compounds. The physical evidence solidified the manuscript as an authentic late medieval artifact, forcing the scientific community to accept that the undeciphered text is a genuine historical puzzle, not a contemporary illusion. With the timeline established, investigators turned their attention back to the bewildering illustrations, hoping the visual data might act as a translation key. The botanical section, comprising over half the book, presents the greatest frustration. At first glance, the plants appear familiar, but closer inspection reveals them to be impossible chimeras. A single drawing might feature the roots of a mandrake, the leaves of a fern, and the petals of a lily, seamlessly grafted together into a botanical Frankenstein. Botanists and pharmacognosists have spent decades attempting to identify these flora, matching them against medieval herbals and modern taxonomy. Some researchers claim to have identified specific species indigenous to Central America, suggesting the manuscript is an early post-Columbian record of New World flora. Others adamantly argue the plants represent European or Asian species, heavily stylized or deliberately obscured to protect alchemical secrets. The lack of consensus highlights the treacherous nature of interpreting the manuscript's visual language, where pareidolia, the human tendency to see familiar patterns in random shapes, often clouds objective analysis. The other sections offer equally perplexing clues. The astronomical pages feature recognizable zodiac symbols, such as Taurus and Scorpio, but they are surrounded by concentric circles of naked figures and unknown stars. The so-called balneological section, with its intricate network of tubes and bathing women, has been interpreted as everything from a treatise on medieval hydrotherapy to a symbolic representation of human reproduction, or even a map of the human vascular system. Each theory is plausible, yet none provides the definitive key required to unlock the accompanying text. The centuries of relentless, fruitless effort have exacted a unique psychological toll on the investigative community. The artifact has become infamous for inducing Voynich syndrome, a phenomenon where brilliant researchers become so consumed by the puzzle that they lose their objectivity, seeing their own specialized knowledge reflected in the ambiguous shapes. Cryptographers see complex codes, linguists see obscure dialects, and astronomers see celestial maps. The manuscript acts as a mirror, reflecting the mind of the investigator while keeping its own secrets perfectly concealed. Today, the investigation has entered the era of artificial intelligence. Machine learning algorithms and neural networks, capable of processing vast amounts of linguistic data in seconds, have been unleashed upon the text. Yet, even the most advanced computational models have failed to produce a verifiable translation. The artificial intelligence can confirm the statistical structures identified by earlier researchers, but it cannot bridge the gap between syntax and semantics. The meaning remains just out of reach, a ghost haunting the digital architecture of modern science. The Voynich Manuscript stands as a profound monument to the limits of human knowledge. It is a medieval book that defies the combined might of historical scholarship, cryptographic genius, and modern technology. Whether it is a lost language, a brilliant cipher, or the most elaborate hoax in history, its true power lies in its enduring resistance. It reminds us that even in an age where information is instantly accessible, there are still ancient silences we cannot break, and mysteries that continue to inspire our relentless, unyielding curiosity.